Hello, you
Hello,
are.
you hardcore boxing fans. Big P here.
We're joined by Terry. How are you doing, Terry?
Good, mate. How are you? Good weekend?
Yeah, great, mate. Yeah, I've put a bit of weight on, so I thought I'd just sit on the settee today. What do you reckon to me new tattoos?
Mate, you look thin in that picture, though, I'm not going to lie.
It's our Tony! Tony. Don't get greedy. Don't get greedy, Tony. Oh, you lad.
Mm. Wow.
Where do we start?
Mate, boxing's just in a dark place right now.
Yeah.
All the lies and the BS is all sort of coming back around, isn't it? Because just go back to about 2015, 2016, Russ. Everyone in boxing was unanimous. If you fail a drugs test, if you get caught using performance-enhancing drugs, you should be banned for life. That was the message. You remember, like, you wouldn't find anyone trying to mitigate or give them bail. Now, 2024.
They were stoning them in streets, weren't they, Tony Bellew and his crew? Stoning them in the stocks.
And now, look at it, Russ. Now, 2024. What do you guys think about doping in sport? Well, it depends. If it's someone that we're making money from, we need to see all the available facts.
Yeah.
If it's someone we're not making money from, they're guilty. And the fans are seeing through it now. And I'm hoping that this is the year, Russ, that people stop believing that these idiots they put in front of the camera are the real experts in boxing, because they're not, right? They've been wrong on almost everything.
All of it.
These were the same people who told us ban all drug cheats. And they said, we don't do business with MTK. All this sort of stuff they were telling us. And everything's turning out to be a lie. Because these guys don't respect the fans and don't respect the intellect of the fans. And they've never realized that because of the internet, we can know what they know.
That's the problem, isn't it? Because, you know, like years ago, when they were putting out them road sweepers for Chris Eubank Sr., Barry Hearn and them, back in the day, or Bazza Epstein, what happened were there were no box rec then, were they? So they could get away with it, couldn't they?
No YouTube. We couldn't see with our own eyes if someone was good or not.
Now they can't get away with it.
And it's annoying them because now they're under pressure to actually make fights the fans want to see. But if you notice, Hearn's very good at parking people he doesn't believe in on someone else's show. Yeah. So he got Callum Smith mandatory for Beterbiev, knowing full well he would never promote Callum Smith fighting for a world title because he never wanted to pay Callum Smith that money.
No.
But he can say to Callum, I did everything I promised you. Now you go and do what you need to do.
A bit like that tournament, really, where Joe G and Calla Sauerland that got that belt for Callum Smith, wasn't it, that tournament? It wasn't Eddie Hills, was it?
No. Eddie hasn't put money into Callum Smith for a long time.
Now, my argument is this. The class of 2012, there's only really Anthony Joshua who's won a world title from that. So
Josh Taylor.
Josh Taylor, yeah, but he wasn't. Eddie Hills didn't get him that belt, did he?
No, Josh did it the proper way. He earned it.
But him and Joshua, Anthony Joshua and Josh Taylor, were the only world champions from that class of 2012, weren't they?
Let's put Tasha in there just because we need the numbers, mate. We're desperate for numbers right now.
Okay. Well, you could put Katie Taylor in, but she fought in 2016, but she did fight. She was the class of 2012, but she was from Ireland, and she went on to win a world title, but she's female, isn't she? So Natasha Jonas has done very well. But let's talk about the males. There's Joshua, what Eddie's had his hands on, and that's really it, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
And that belt were by default, it was Fury's belt, wasn't it? So is it a myth, this Eddie Hills legendary promoter? Because really, they've not put money into anybody, have they? They bought Joshua's belt, but they burgled it from Fury, didn't they? Kathy Duver and Eddie Hills burgled it off Mick Hennessy and Fury, didn't they?
So This is where it's tricky. So let's give Eddie credit. Like, you got to give him credit for certain things, right? So I'll give him credit for Brook versus Golovkin. As much as that was a mismatch in terms of an event, we haven't seen anything like it since. So credit to him for that. Joshua versus Klitschko at Wembley, incredible. I think those two things we have to take our hat off to him for. But he kind of lives off that reputation, right? Everything else has kind of been like, you know, nothing else has been spectacular. I'm not going to give him credit for anything to do with Canelo. Canelo was Canelo before he met Eddie Hearn. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think Hearn's been the best British promoter of his generation, but he doesn't come close to Bob or Al in terms of delivering the events fans wanted to see, and doesn't come close to Al or Bob in terms of being able to come through with another generation, then another generation. Eddie hasn't done that.
No, he's put all his eggs in one basket with Joshua because he got a lifetime deal with, and I think he wants to fight with him till he's about 38, Joshua.
That's it, mate. I don't think it's otherwise than that. I think once Joshua's gone, it's going to be very, very hard for him to do anything. Because I don't think the DAZN money's there to poach someone. I don't think there's a standout heavyweight right now that would be worth his time. So what do you do?
Yeah, he's had to do a mend, hasn't he, really? That's what I think. But as for Callum Smith, he didn't deliver Callum Smith that belt. And last night, in my opinion, I don't think he was deserving of that title shot. If you look at his CV, he's had 15 minutes of action over 2 fights as a light heavyweight, right, in the last 37 months since Canelo. So does that warrant a world title shot? Don't forget, he's been inactive 18 months, not even 4. Does that warrant a shot at the main man in the division?
So let's have the honest conversation about what happened with this kid's career.
Yeah.
They said to him, look, you've climbed up these WBC rankings. I think it's a WBC he's got, right? You've climbed up these rankings. We don't want to spend money on you, was the message. We don't really want to spend money on you, Callum, because you don't sell tickets. Right, number one. Number two, fans don't really care about you. Like, you're one of those people who's popular in Liverpool.
Yeah.
So it was like, you can fight Craig Richards. Callum said no. Too much of a risk. You can fight Lyndon Arthur. He said no. I think they maybe even offered Dan Aziz. Don't quote me on that. But Callum could have had domestic British dust-ups with his generation, and he
could
said...
have had Gale.
Yeah. There are loads of fights Callum could have had. But I mean more just even at light heavyweight. And he said no to all of these fights. So sat around waiting for his mandatory shot. Already, I don't respect that because you know you don't have the pedigree. And that was always the issue for me. Like, when I look at a world title fight, I look at the pedigree of both guys. And my hope is you get two guys with a really strong pedigree fight each other. That's what you're really hoping for. And so you looked at Beterbiev, and Beterbiev, like, it's a solid list of people he's beaten, like Gavodchik, Marcus Brown, Joe Smith Jr. These are all solid names where you're like, yeah, those are stand-up names. Anthony Yard. These are all solid names that have operated in...
He ran through them all, Terry, didn't it? He's run through the lot of them, hasn't
he? Yeah, there's only Bivol left.
Yeah.
Well,
is that a roadman, Terry? Is that a roadman?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
But yeah, just the way he's done it as well. You have to remember how he's done it. Like, it's not like he waited to get to the judges' scorecards. He was like, no. We're not going to the judges.
When I look at that, I look back at the Anthony Yard fight, and let's have it right. They had Anthony Yard winning the fight at the time of stoppage, but the fix were in if that went to scorecards, wasn't it, really? So he wasn't prepared for that to happen, were he, Beterbiev?
I don't know how you could have given Yard anything, and that would have been an absolute disgust. Nah, I think that would have ended British boxing. He was getting beaten up, right? You know me, I'm a big Yard fan. I'm a big Tunde fan. In that Beterbiev fight, he was getting beaten up. Round 7, he had 22 unanswered punches. So How are you going to give someone a fight when they've had to face that kind of barrage? Callum Smith took the same thing as well.
Yeah, well, I look at it like this. It was a bit embarrassing, really, seeing Anthony Yard on TalkSport saying I was winning the fight. Two judges had me up when I got stopped, and now it looks like he's a drug cheat and blah, blah. That were a couple of days ago. So obviously, there's been a lot of backtracking since then, Anna. But no way would I have been able to accept a Yard win on points in that fight. So I don't know what they've bought into or Tunde, but they're going to go out to bat for his guy. But no way were he winning that fight, I'm afraid. I know you're a big Yard fan, and I'm a Yard fan, but come on, let's have it right. We know what we saw, don't we?
Well, didn't I just say he got beaten up? Like Yard got beaten up in that fight. Like he got. It was hard to watch that, and the thing is, people just cheering Anthony Yard for fighting back, even if he missed. People were cheering that.
Yeah.
And this is why I don't like the idea of how we judge boxing, because that's influencing the judges.
Yeah. Hey, listen, they'd have took that win Bricktop on them. If he did it, they would have said, get your son off you, Baturbia. But Baturbia put his foot down on gas. He knew he was going to get no favours whatsoever. They thought, we'll bring him over here. He's bound to be getting old at any time. And to be fair to Bricktop, they rolled the dice, didn't they? But they come on stuck. But that last night, it was built up as a 50-50 that last night. And two judges gave him 2 rounds. And then you've got that boxing news lot. Not Rob Tebbett, the other kid, interviewing Hills, and he's saying, well, he took 2 rounds off him, and Eddie Hearn's gone, Eddie Hills has just turned around and gone, yeah, he was just getting comfortable, and I thought, here we go now, the tide's turning. The tide never turned once. He never won a 30-second block of any round out that 20 minutes. That's 20 minutes, 40, 30-second blocks, and he didn't win one, Terry. I've watched it 5 times now.
Callum Smith got beaten up, right? He got beaten up, properly beaten up. That's like the sort of thing you used to see at school, where the mouthy kid met the guy that could fight, and he just took punch after punch after punch. I had a kid like that at school. His name was Toby Clouston. He just got punched up by my mate John, and it was embarrassing to watch, man. Just taking like 15, 20, 30 unanswered shots. Yeah. Trying to throw a chair. My mate John's caught the chair, put the chair down, punched him again. I was like, there you go. And that's what Callum Smith got yesterday. But the question I have is, who's left Joe Gallagher and become a better fighter? I can't think of anyone.
I can't.
You know, because I don't know if you noticed, you could see Callum Smith trying to do that kind of Buddy McGirt stuff of trying to slip and slide and move his head around, but it wasn't natural to Callum.
No.
You know, Buddy McGirt took everything that made Callum solid, not good, just solid, took everything that made Callum Smith solid, that high guard, that ability to catch that right hand and throw a counter left hook. He took all of that away from Callum Smith. So much like Deontay Wilder, Callum was in there just confused, like, this isn't making any sense to me because of what Buddy McGirt's put in my ear. And then McGirt's just jumped in and gone, do you know what? Let me stop the fight now before my reputation takes another battering.
Takes another battering. What? Listen, since he's come over here, what has he done? All he's done is put his hand out and said, put some silver in my hand. He's done nothing, that man. He's doing over here to what he did to Gatti's lot. Do you know what I mean? And that's why they snubbed him at Gatti's. Gatti's family snubbed him at that funeral. He's a wrong un. No. He's a taker.
But that's the bit I can't speak to. I can speak to the boxing side of things. And I think I said earlier today, he's becoming the American Adam Booth.
Yeah, somebody told me you said that. Yeah, the go-to guy.
No, not so much that. You know those guys who sound like they should know what they're doing? Because think about this. Do you remember before Macklin became a proper pundit and they just go to him at ringside? And Macklin would tell you, he'd tell you this, the guy's herky-jerky, he's a bit awkward, and he just needs to catch and counter. That was everything Macklin would ever say when he was ringside. And we're like, never heard that before. Maybe Macklin would make a good pundit. Then he became a pundit, and he hasn't really been that good as a pundit. And then Andy Lee did the same thing, right? Andy Lee would come out with a few sound bites and we'd go, oh, Andy Lee, yeah, he knows what he's on about. Oh, here's a clever guy. Yeah, he knows what he's on about. Became a commentator, not really that knowledgeable. right? It happens every time. And it was the same with Malik Scott. If you remember how people worship Malik Scott, oh my God, this is exactly who Deontay Wilder needs. But Malik Scott was also selling magic beans. All of these guys sell magic beans. And then when you look for a case study, show me a case study of these guys delivering, yeah, at the top level. You don't see it.
I know. I'm disappointed with Callum Smith's performance. My argument is this. Obviously I said my bit this morning up at office, but my argument is this. Undeserving and a sense of entitlement. That is the problem with British boxing at the moment. A sense of entitlement. And Dylan White's the same as well. And there's a whole host of them that feel like they can just dictate what they want and who they're fighting now. And that's where we're heading. Whatever happened to getting in line and the promoters getting a grip of this and saying, you're fighting him. If you don't fight him, you're going to back at Q. And commissions showing a bit of strength. But the commissions are now overpowered, aren't they, by money, by a hunger for money. And they can easily be bought.
That's always been true. We've just never had the access we've got now. That's always been true. That you can buy your way up the rankings, you know. That's what happens. This is what happened with Mike Tyson. He bought his way up the rankings. Up until Berbick, none of those wins were worthy of a world title shot, considering who was around at the time. But Don King put his money up, and that was it. So commissions have always been there to be bought, Russ. The issue with Callum Smith wasn't that Callum played the game. He sat in those rankings until people dropped out, and he just kind of rose. He almost ended up there by default. So the issue is, why doesn't Callum Smith have a better record? And it comes down to this. Hearn never wanted to put money in Callum because deep down he never believed in him. If he believed in Callum Smith like he believed in Joshua, there's so many times he could have just gone and bought a belt for him. Easily. Could have moved him up earlier, could have bought a belt for him. Instead, what did he do? He fed him to Canelo. Said, Canelo, mate, I ain't really got no one. But what about this Callum Smith, eh? You give me Callum Smith, gringo. All right, mate, yeah, I'll do that for you. Battered Callum Smith. Callum Smith, not very good. Eduardo, man, what do you do next there, say? Oh, mate, don't know what I'm going to do, you know what I mean? And he, like, after that, after he saw Canelo batter him, Hearn knows boxing. On God, people want to take the piss out. He knows who's good and who's not, by the way. He knows. He knew after the way Canelo beat up Callum Smith, he knew there was no way Callum could go up against Beterbiev. No way in hell. A guy who works harder than Canelo. A guy with as good a boxing IQ as Canelo. A guy with more power than Canelo. A guy whose power doesn't diminish over the 12 rounds, unlike Canelo. How did he think Callum was going to win? With what? But he knew that was the way to get
catch and counter. I'm sick of hearing about that with you, Terry. Catch and counter. Got a bit boring, didn't it, this week, all that catch and counter shit?
Yeah, I don't know why people say it. Like you're going to do that 100 times in a fight. Like Beterbiev hasn't prepared himself for that.
I know, you're like he's never seen out like that before.
You know, and then I looked at it and I was like, even in that fight, whenever Smith was fighting back, Beterbiev was just like, is that it? There was no respect for anything Callum Smith was doing. And I don't want to hear anything about he struggled at the weight, because he kind of struggled at the weight because he didn't even look that big at the weight.
Well, this is how I look at it, right? Usyk beat him, didn't he, in World Championships, Beterbiev. He had to box him, though, didn't he, because of his power. But why didn't Callum box him? He had the height, he had the reach, he's supposed to have this freakish power they kept going on about. Where were the freakish power?
See, this is the thing. Everyone asks these questions. The reality is, Russ, once those shots start touching you, you're more worried about the shots than you are about what you're doing. Yeah? Because you're like, these are uncomfortable. There's more of them. It's I imagine it's what drowning feels like, Russ.
Yeah.
Where you're like, I'm just getting hit here and it's not stopping. And there's nothing I can do to stop it. And I think when he went down the first time, I think that was just mental exhaustion because he'd never been there before.
Yeah.
And this is what pedigree is, Russ. Pedigree is there's nothing that can happen in a ring I haven't experienced before, and I can overcome.
Firefight, had he? Terry, not been in a firefight. He had it all his own way, 10 years.
That's the problem. Well, it's not so much the firefight, Russ. Actually, it's more like you say. Look at the guys Beterbiev's had to overcome. Guys like Marcus Brown. In another world, Marcus Brown might be undisputed. If there's no Beterbiev, maybe Marcus Brown is undisputed. If there's no Beterbiev, maybe Gavotchik is undisputed. These are guys who people thought would dominate light heavyweight. These are guys that people said would give Ward trouble, right?
Yeah.
Beterbiev just steamrolled them. For me to give Callum Smith any kind of credibility, he'd have to show me his version of that. Who are the people you ran over? Because you were lucky against John Ryder, and John Ryder's definitely not Beterbiev.
George Groves?
He had one arm. I saw that with my own eyes. He had one arm. He literally just went for the payday. Yeah, let's get this money and retire.
Hassan and Dam, a middleweight, donkey's years, later fighting at super middle against a big super middle. That's not a brilliant win, is it?
Do you remember when he fought? Remember when Hassan and Dam fought at the Olympics and got beaten up at the Olympics? There you go.
No. It was disappointing, and personally, I thought his timing was out. I saw him go with a right hand lead uppercut, and he missed by a country mile. And he's no slickster, is he, Beterbiev? He's pretty basic, actually, isn't he? Really, in his work, he reminds me of Zan.
No, he's not basic, Russ.
I mean, he's not slippery like a Dyrrell or a Ward, is he?
No, but you don't have to be slick. You don't have to be. What he's really good at is managing his position. So he always puts himself in a position that even if you catch him, it will be a glancing blow. So if you actually watch it, he never takes shots flush. And that's kind of one of his advantages against opponents. They never hit him clean, because if they did, they'd probably hurt him. Callum Johnson did. He's one guy that got him clean. But Callum Smith was getting hit clean. Remember that uppercut he threw? Beterbiev's gone one side, right uppercut, come to the left side, try to get that uppercut in there as well. I was like, mate, you're just bullying the kid now. That's what it looked like. It looked like Callum Smith was just getting bullied in there.
Well, it did, didn't it?
But like I said, all these people who leave trainers thinking they're going to be better.
No, was it?
I tell people all the time, boxers are the most delusional people when it comes to who they are and what they're capable of. Callum Smith was never world level. Like Joe protected him a lot of that time. Swifty Smith, never world level. Joe protected him. Paul Smith, never world level. Joe protected him. The only one where you're credible at world level was Liam.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying he was amazing, but he was the best out of the brothers.
Who's his best two wins, Beefy? Jesse Vargas and Eubank. And he's the best.
But those are better wins than any of the other Smith brothers.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose you could call it Rocky Field and Hassan and Dam and Groves. It's a bit threadbare, Callum, to say he had a Ring Magazine belt as well, isn't it?
Now, that whole family was just almost like a marketing creation. This fighting family from Liverpool. And you're like, well, yeah, but not that good though.
Well, I mean, Beterbiev's we beat 7 world champions already. We're world champion in his 11th fight. He's done Olympians and all sorts. The guy's flying high, 20-0, 20 knockouts, and he dealt with Mundo in 20 minutes.
And no mileage.
And no mileage on the clock, and he's done what? 20 fights, 98 rounds, averaging 4.9 rounds. Averaging under 5 rounds, Terry, a fight. Under 5
no
rounds.
mileage.
And look what and he could actually end up fighting Bivol and have all the lot in 21 fights. That's unbelievable, isn't it? A bit like Usyk, isn't it? They're from a different era. Usyk cleaned up, didn't he, with similar rounds at cruiserweight. these guys, they don't shoot the mouths off. They take care of business, don't they? It's not about social media to them, is it? They're fetched up differently to our lot.
I think where I'd make them different animals is, I think Beterbiev's always going to try and stop you. Like, none of this, I'm going to try and box for the 12. He's always going to try and stop you. Even if he moved up to cruiser, he'd try and stop people. I always think with Usyk will try and outbox you, try and outwork you, which is one way of doing it. But if you also compare their records, Beterbiev's pedigree in terms of guys that he's ran through, not many people compare to that. That's like a Crawford level kind of record. Crawford. So I put Beterbiev in that same conversation as Crawford, Jamal Charlo before the Canelo fight, Inoue. I think that probably wraps that up on the men's side. And he's in that group where you're like, if you become undisputed, no one can question your career. Nobody.
Yeah. What people are saying that's it for Mundo now. He'll retire. What do you think?
What's he got left to fight for? He's not world level. He's not close to world level. The two times he's kind of risen to that level, he's had the shit beaten out of him. Sorry for swearing, but he has. This, mate, the Smith thing is done. That Smith family thing is done. Only people in Liverpool love them. Only people in Liverpool say they're any good. The rest of us see through it now. It's a wrap.
Do you think he ever was world level, Mundo?
No, not at all.
No.
You're world level when you do world level things. He's never done world level things. The one thing I will say, though, I looked at it and I was like, where's he done his training camp? Because Buddy McGirt's in California, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, so you're going to do, if you do your training camp there, and it's whatever temperature it is, you're going to Quebec. So your body's going to adjust to like maybe a 20, 25 degree swing in temperature. Like, how are you supposed to prepare for that? How do you acclimatize that unless you do your whole camp there like Beterbiev did? People don't talk about these things, but that is a huge thing. Like, your body having to go from kind of like a temperate climate to freezing. It's a huge stress on the body. Making weight becomes harder. Your metabolic rate goes all over the place because you don't know what to do. It can affect your hormone profile. It can affect everything. And it doesn't seem that anyone in this team thought this through and said, actually, maybe we just need to train in the cold for the whole camp and make sure that we're optimized for this. Because like you said, he just never looked like he deserved to be in the same ring as Beterbiev. And and you can't even explain why. There wasn't a jab. There was nothing that he did that made any sense, Russ, where you're like, hold on, okay, at least his jab's still working. There was nothing that worked for him.
Terry, do you think that what's happening is some of these fighters, I mean, Mundo's 34, isn't he, in a couple of weeks? Some of these fighters now, right, they're like patched up, aren't they? But they're selling them. They're dressing it up as they're still elite. I mean, there's like the passing Chris Eubank Jr. off now as back to his best, and there's Kell Brook hovering around, and Beef is still hovering around, and they're dressing it up, and they're using social media, and these little gimps running around with cameras are bigging them all up. And surely these gimps know that these fighters are shot to pieces, but they can't say anything. It's not their place to be to say it because they want access, don't they? It's left to us guys, isn't it?
Mate, I don't care anymore. And I'll tell you why I don't care, Russ. It's up to the younger guys to force these guys out. I said the same about Chisora. Chisora should box for as long as he can because it's these young boys that have to put him out of their misery.
Yeah.
If Derek can still go around the gyms and terrorize the young prospects, why should he retire? Yeah. What should happen is these young boys should be battering these old guys and going, you're too old to be in this game. Get out. That's what should be happening. Until someone can do that, I can't justify people having to retire or step out or step aside. I can't, Russ. And I say this to young guys all the time. I say, you can't be a fan of the people you're sparring. In your head, you've got to make them feel old. If you can't make them feel old, you're never going to get to their level.
Yeah, yeah. What did you make of the old? What we got here? 9 minutes. What do you make of the drug test thing, and then how Hearn went about it, and then within 48 hours they were backtracked, and Michelle Phelps, Coogan, and the others, whatever, they all seem to like change the story. The narrative changed it. What did you make of all that, Terry? Do you think it was in bad taste?
So people get atypical findings all the time, Russ.
Yeah. Mainly
So
Olympic athletes, though, isn't it, that get them in it out of all the testing? That's what it said on news.
if you tested the man in the street, you'd probably find something similar. So I'll give you an example. You may have a pituitary tumor, yeah?
Yeah.
And so what that does is it presses on your pituitary gland and you're secreting more growth hormone than you would normally do. You may secrete 2 or 3 times the amount. So when you get tested, it's an atypical finding. So what they say is, hold on, this is natural growth hormone, but it's at levels that we don't really see in our reference range. And then you say, okay, no, got pituitary tumor. That's what's causing it. And then they go, okay, fine, whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's fine. So an atypical finding is something that would naturally occur in your body, but just not in the level they discovered. Don't know what the numbers were for Beterbiev. It may just be that he just got spiked from something he ate, something he did, endocrine shock. There are all these sorts of reasons you can do it, right? And so people go, yeah, that's still like failing a test. It's not, because how these tests work is, number one, they look for stuff that you've injected. So stuff that shouldn't be in you. That's the easiest stuff to detect. And then they look for elevated numbers. So they'll look at your testosterone. If that's elevated, you go, okay, but what's his test, the epi test? That's roughly 1-to-1 or within 4-to-1. It's still okay. So they'll look at all these other factors and they'll go, okay, that was just a temporary spike. Now, the other side is he may just have been tested at the wrong time and the stuff was clearing his system. That's also possible. But we only ever deal in failed tests, Russ. Like, I won't speak about atypical findings because
I didn't even know how this were news, and I think they were, even Bob Arum, I mean, don't get by him, but they were flabbergasted that Eddie had the balls to even send all his little minions out with the cameras interviewing people, and they like flooded it, didn't it? They were like locusts going on about it every 2 minutes, videos popping up. I thought the fight were going to be cancelled. Me, there were that much PR from it. It was like Eddie going into full Eddie mode with all his little ants. You know what I mean?
yeah, but by the rules, you can't cancel a fight for an atypical finding.
Yeah, I know, yeah. But there were a lot of hype around it, and I started looking into it, and I thought, oh God, do you know what I mean? But now I've looked at it, and I thought, and they kept comparing it to Conor Ben's and saying mistakes are made, and it kept putting Conor Ben in that atypical bracket, and everybody could see what they were trying to do, couldn't they? Victor Conte, Aram, and everybody, couldn't they? But none of the YouTubers said, Eddie, come on, you're trying to put it in the same bracket as Conor Ben's, but nobody told him, did they?
So the difference is Conor Ben fell for clomiphene. Clomiphene doesn't occur naturally in the human body at all. At all. You shouldn't have it in you. You failed 2 tests for it, A samples and B samples. That's completely different to what we see here. So I'm not going to say Beterbiev is a clean athlete. I don't know who is clean. What I can say is he didn't fail a test. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. And what will happen with that now? Then will Hearn just not mention it again, or Aram will send lawyers in?
Just want to mention it again. Callum Smith, miles off it. That's just the harsh reality. Just miles off it. Bellew tried to say you shouldn't be getting better as you get older, forgetting what his career was like.
I know, yeah. Unbelievable.
You know what I mean? Yeah, conveniently forgets how his career was and how people were saying that maybe Bellew's on the juice.
Well, Tony Bellew, the man that never took a belt off a champion. Hey,
Never wanted to.
Clean. Never wanted to. He didn't want that. He didn't want that tournament, did he? Where there were big money in that tournament as well, wasn't he? He didn't fancy that, did he?
No. Look, I think it's sad what he's become, where he's just this talking head for Matchroom, and he's embarrassed himself. Like, his legacy is tarnished because everyone thought Bellew was that stand-up guy about all things boxing, and now it turns out he stands up when Eddie tells him to.
Yeah, yeah. He has become a bit of an embarrassment lately, hasn't he?
But you know, when this is when you realize guys in boxing don't make the money you think they do, and maybe they just need to stay in that limelight to squeeze those last few shillings out of the game.
Well, that's how it goes, isn't it? That's how it goes. But it is what it is. Oh, you want to add, Terry?
No, just I'm glad that this whole Callum Smith Ponzi scheme has been revealed for what it is, and I hope that boxing fans now start to be a bit more critical about the rubbish that promoters feed them. Like, stop believing people when they tell you guys are good. Most British fighters are no good. Simple as, they're not very good. They're British level. That's it. You know, we send them abroad. They come back with their tail between their legs, and it's embarrassing. Like, if we don't start having that conversation of how do we get our kids to be better, then what's the point?
Agree, mate. I agree. What next then for Baturbia? Bivol? Or is Eddie trying to put words in the mouth? Because at the presser, they said we've had no talk whatsoever, no dates, we haven't signed anything. Bivol can sign what he wants, we Eddie heard, but we haven't done any, we don't know nothing about anything, did they? It was a bit bizarre, wasn't it?
Not really, because no fight's been agreed, right? If you look at the Saudis, right, they've got potentially Fury versus Usyk, and then it's Joshua Ngannou for Riyadh season. Then it's Ramadan. After Riyadh season, it's Ramadan. So you can write everything off till about May, June time. Then it's too hot to be in Saudi Arabia. So then you're looking at the second half of the year for the undisputed fight. So why would they have agreed something now? They haven't.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose, yeah. Bivol's probably signed it because he looks like he's pretty easily manipulated, doesn't he? But Cospaturbias we Aram, that it'll be a bit harder to get them on board working with Hills, won't it? Without everything being checked properly.
The fight won't be done by Eddie Hearn. Like, he hasn't got the money to make Bivol versus Beterbiev.
Talking like he's making the fight, isn't he?
Frank will make the fight.
Yeah, I know, but Eddie's talking like he's putting offers out. Oh, yeah, we've got Bivol and like all these interviews he's doing and that. It's like he's taking over it. He's like making fights that nobody knows nothing about because it's nothing to do with him, is it? He's just like an agent for Bivol now, isn't he?
That's it. So I wouldn't read anything into it. When Bob tells you the fight's on, then the fight's on. They've got 3 at the belts. They will call the shots.
Yeah, I agree with that, mate. I agree. That's it. Thanks for coming on, Terry. You're a gentleman.
No worries, mate. Listen, have a good rest of your Sunday.
I will. And all the best. And pop, bang.
Pop, bang.
Well, peace out. See you, pal.
Take care, mate. Bye.
Well, that was Terry there with a good breakdown, a tactical breakdown like Buddy McGirt, the old tactical breakdown genius, eh? Heading for the whole queue. Well, women love him, men want to be him. Go on, peace out. Thanks for liking and subscribing and leaving a comment. Booyaka! We've got Jerry on next, and then we've got Andy from Aberdeen. Ooh, pop, bang.